and out. So the knock sensor lives right underneath this wiring harness. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Behind me, 2007 Toyota Camry, we're gonna be replacing the knock sensor. Now the knock sensor lives in between the intake manifold and the engine, so we have to pull the manifold off. Let's get started. We're gonna start underneath the vehicle. There's only a few things we have to do underneath. There's 2 intake manifold bolts, one right there, and the other one's right there. Then we want to remove the wiring harness that goes to our oxygen sensor. Normally it lives right there, but on this vehicle it got moved during an earlier repair. Once the bolts are removed and the wiring harness is disconnected from the manifold, we're done under here. Let's go back up top. All right, now everything else can be done from up here. Now the steps might seem intimidating, but really it's not that bad. First thing we want to do is pull off our wiper arms. Those are a 14 millimeter. We just give them a shake and they should pop free. Now we want to pull off this plastic cover. There is a clip on either side. Just the Phillips will get it up. It's just a clip like this. And then in the corner here, we have a little seal that'll separate from our plastic. We'll do that on the other side as well. Right now our plastic should come up and pull forward. And it'll slide out from under the glass. Now we want to remove our wiper motor. There's an electrical connector here. We'll undo that. 10 millimeter bolts gets our motor off. Comes right out. Now to pull our metal tray, it's a series of 10 millimeter bolts and 2 14 millimeter bolts, one on either side of your strut. Oh, I lied. There are a total of 4 strut bolts, 2 on one side and 2 on the other side. We have 2 harness retainers. This one with just a flathead screwdriver will pop up. This other one will be a challenge. You could try to pull it up, but if you're having trouble, it's okay to just cut it. Having a pair of pliers like this might help. There we go. Now this whole tray can come up and out. 2 10 millimeter bolts gets our engine cover off. Let's pop up. Now we're gonna work on our air box. We have a clamp here we wanna pull off. And just slide this back. Use a little screwdriver to help pry it out. There we go. We have our mass airflow sensor on top. We have a 10 millimeter for our clamp up here. And we have 2 10 millimeter bolts holding our air box down. And then 1 harness retainer on this side. And we can lift the box up and get it out of our way. Now let's work on getting this duct out of the way. We have our purge solenoid. There's a Phillips on this side. Sometimes it can be hard getting that Phillips off because this is super flexible. And as you're trying to turn it, this thing just wants to bend. So you can try that. If that comes off, then our whole purge solenoid can just be sloughed out of the way. If you can't do it, then all we want to do is remove this electrical connector and the 2 hoses that are attached to it. And that's good enough. I'm just gonna get my Phillips off. There we go, just move that out of the way. I'm gonna put my screw back in it so I don't lose it. Now down at the bottom, connected to the throttle body, is a clamp we'll get with just a pair of pliers. And then this whole thing should wiggle off. There we go. All right, we're making good progress. Let me move you around and we'll start disconnecting everything over here. All right, so now back here, we're gonna start from this corner and work our way in that direction. We have our hose here we can disconnect from our PCV valve. I'm gonna slide that over. We have our hose here we'll disconnect. Pair of pliers, get that clamp off. Give it a twist and it should pop off. There we go. I do not believe our VVT solenoid has to come off, but I'm gonna disconnect the electrical connector. That way it keeps it safe while we're pulling up our manifold. We can pull off our fuel rail, pull this off, and that'll expose our 2 12 millimeters here. We'll need a deep socket. And we don't have to disconnect the fuel line over here. Everything's gonna come out as one assembly and just slough over. There may be a little fuel pressure, so we're gonna drape a rag over it and then wear safety goggles. Okay, now we're gonna slowly pull up. There we go. Okay, no pressure. Now there are these little blocks that'll fall out. That's okay, just set them aside. Now this one fuel injector stayed, so we're gonna pop it out of the engine. There we go. And then put it back in the rail. Nice. Now we'll turn it over and we'll disconnect our electrical connectors. All right, there we go. Now our whole fuel rail will just lay over. Pop it out of this little holder over here. There we go. Our purge solenoid hose here, let's pull the clamp back, pop that off our throttle body, disconnect our throttle body connector, this retainer with a flathead screwdriver, there we go. There's one of 2 ways of doing this. We could pull off our throttle body and take it off our manifold, or we have 2 coolant lines here. We can pop off our coolant lines and leave the throttle body. That's up to you. I don't want to mess with coolant, so I'm going to pull off the throttle body. 4 bolts. All right, I'll just set that aside. All right, now we just have our main fasteners. We have 5 altogether. 2 nuts, and 3 bolts. All right, that should be it. Now we got one more. We want to remove this 10 millimeter, and there's one more 10 millimeter over there, and we can move this out of the way. All right, just kind of wiggle it up and out. So the knock sensor lives right underneath this wiring harness. 12 millimeter, disconnect the connector. All right, that should just come right off. Now we'll just slide on our new one. We want our connector at an angle, kind of how it was before. And this is 15 foot-pounds. It's important that it does not get over tightened. All right, plug in our connector. There we go. Let's put everything back together. All right, now we'll slide this back in. It wouldn't hurt to put on a new gasket. These just pop off, the new one can slide right in, and then a new throttle body gasket as well. We'll drop this in. There we go. Perfect. Just set these bolts in and get them hand threaded. Snug them down. Now we're not going to tighten them down yet. We want to make sure we can get our bottom ones in. And if we need to move the manifold left or right or wiggle it just to get it in, we want to make sure we can do that. Now we'll go underneath, get those 2 bolts in, and just finger tight for now. Then we want to take our spacers and just put them right there, one there, one there. We'll bring our injectors over. Sorry if my head's in your way, just need to see where they're going. Make sure they go in the hole properly. Okay. All right, perfect. We'll bolt these down. Torque to spec. Now if you'd like, you can get new injector O-rings and seals as well. Plug our PCV hose back in. We can put this tubing back on. I just took the whole thing out. Slides back in. Put our nuts back on. We'll plug in our VVT solenoid. That did not have to come unplugged. We have our throttle body. All right, we'll torque that to spec, and then we have our connector we'll plug in. Now really this connector also didn't have to come off if you're taking off the whole throttle body. There we go. Same with our purge hose, didn't have to come off if you're pulling the throttle body off. Put that little clamp back on. There we go. We have our injector harness. We'll slide in. All right, good. We have our air duct we'll put on. It's just this clamp here. There we go. Well, I must have hit the wrong button and my GoPro was on time warp. So everything was done super fast. So hopefully there's enough information you can use, putting our airbox on, plugging everything in. I'll put the torque spec for our strut bolts up on the screen. Now I want to plug in our electrical connector for our motor. And then we'll get this set in its little retainers. All right, we'll put our plastic cover on. We'll slide this under the windshield. Part of it goes under, part of it goes over. Put in our side clips, and then our little weather stripping should snap back in. Put our wipers back on. All right, I left torquing the manifold down for last. I'm gonna roll it up on the stand so I can get under there, have plenty of room to put our 2 bottom bolts in, and we'll get this all torqued down. Put our engine cover back on, and we're good to go. All right, there you go. Not too bad, about 2 hours or less. I apologize ahead of time about that time-lapse portion. Not quite sure what it looks like yet, but hopefully there is enough information there to help you through putting it all back together. If this video was helpful, hit the like button, maybe subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.